time, it's hard to explain the inexplicable, and that's what the parents are going to have to try to do tonight. Diana Williams for us, and she'll be there all night up in Connecticut near the scene of the shooting. Diana, thank you. We want to turn this over now to a little bit and ask some questions of Sal LaFrera. He is a former New York cop and now a security expert, and I think parents who send their kids to school, I know my partner does here, and I do too, on Monday when we send our kids to school, in elementary school, are they going to be all right? And how can they possibly, with all the budget problems that schools have, increase security there? How are they going to afford to do that? Who pays for that?
It's going to be a problem. It's going to be something that's going to be on the minds of everybody for some time to come, especially in this, especially as this story plays out, because we still haven't gotten a resolution to this yet. We're still in the middle of a breaking story. It's one of those things that they're going to need to, get in touch with the school, have dialogue with the schools, talk to them about it. Some of the things that we've been seeing, especially in the realm of cyberbullying, is starting to generate those conversations between parents and schools. So we're starting to see it in that direction. I'm sure the schools are going to reach out and try and talk to the parents and give some sense of comfort, as well as local law enforcement, and we're seeing it around the country. I think LA did it earlier. New York, I'm sure, will do it. Will give a heightened presence at the schools.
LA looking at their schools right now, today. They put out a note.
But would having an armed police officer patrolling, I guess, schools in the district, would something like that help? Would that have made a difference today?
Sometimes perception helps. Perception sometimes becomes reality for folks. If you have that type of an armed officer and you have a police presence at the school, may give the parents a little bit more sense of comfort. But we go back to our conversations earlier today. This isn't something where, if you're trying to stop this at the front door on the day that it's happening, it's a little too late. That's the problem. Someone coming in that well armed, with if the reports are true that he had a vest on and he was dressed in camouflage and he had multiple rounds and multiple weapons, an officer standing at the door may get overwhelmed and may get overmatched, especially if they're coming in with assault rifles. So,
but he didn't have assault rifles. He had 2 pistols, 2 9mm, what we're told.
No, but going back to your story before, of all of the other situations that have occurred where guys are showing up with these rifles and whatever, you're going to have that type of a situation where an officer could potentially be overwhelmed. Now, do you turn it into a lockdown camp and do you have a SWAT team at the school? No.
No, you can't do that.
It's a very difficult situation. I think one of the things that we really need to do, and this is the most difficult in this particular point in time in this, is that we need to try and draw the emotion away and try and look at the practical applications of how we react to it. Emotionally, everyone would want the schools to be on lockdown, to have people, to have officers there, and to ensure that there's going to be 100% safety. When you take the emotion out of it, you realize that, okay, not everybody is 100% safe. We're going to need to do something. We're going to need to learn some lessons from this, and we're going to need to step it up.
We did do this, though, and the emotion was high after 9/11, and you know what? Sal, we cracked down at the airports, and yes, it's a pain, but the lines have remained long, and we still do it 11 and a half years later, and we stopped having people just walk through security. We stopped them taking on, more than 4 ounces or 3 ounces of liquids. All that stuff happened, and it was emotional, and yet we cracked down there. Why not do the same thing at the schools?
Well, if you look at the changes that have been made with the TSA and in our screening processes were all as a result of threats that had come in, and it was understanding what the techniques and how the attacks, the methodologies of the attacks. We need to follow the same exact thing today. We need to take a look at, okay, what are the threats that we're facing,
and what works,
and what works, and what's going to be acceptable to parents and what's not.
And there has been so much focus over the last couple of years since Columbine, focus on middle schools and high schools. I don't think anyone has ever considered an elementary school.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times what happens in the arena when it comes to law enforcement and security is that we become very reactive. We wait for a situation to occur, and then we realize the problem, and then we try and solve the problem. It's one of the paradigms that's changing in a greater discussion. That's one of the paradigms in policing that's changed. We used to wait for robberies to occur, look for a pattern, and then go out and try and stop them from continuing to occur. Today in terrorism, we need to go out and we need to stop it before it occurs. Same paradigm shift is occurring in education today. We need to get in front of these situations, and we need to do it where it's going to be acceptable to parents.
Before we let you go, we should say one thing, that we don't know what happened, how he got in. We really don't.
Right.
And we don't know that yet. And if the guy let him in, was the guard overwhelmed there? The person who lets people in there in the elementary school, we have no idea whether that person's even alive. So we can't jump to any conclusions because we just don't know what unfolded there.
And there's a familiarity. If his mother was with the school, my mom works here. We talked about it earlier about
he went to school there.
Yep. He went to school there. He's known. His mode of dress may have drawn some attention if that's how we went in. But we don't even know if he went in the front door. We're making an assumption he went in the front door. He could have broken a window and got in.
We don't know.
Who knows? We don't know at this point.
All right, Sal LaFerriera, security expert, former New York cop. We appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Sal. We're going to head out to Marcus Solis. He has been there all day long. He has been in Newtown. Marcus, tell us the latest from where you are right now.
Well, it has quieted down quite a bit here on Churchill Road, but this is really the center of all of the activity that has been going on. Countless emergency vehicles going to and from the school, parents coming out, teachers coming out, some in tears. There have also been some joyful reunions. This investigation, of course, as we know, still going on. It is some 9 hours after the shooting. We're approaching 9 hours. State police saying they will leave no stone unturned as they conduct this investigation. And the governor of Connecticut, Dan Malloy, putting it bluntly, saying evil visited this community today.
Sandy Hook School. Callers indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building. The front glass has been broken out of the school. They're unsure why.
Police radio transmissions indicate the seriousness of the situation, but not the scope of the horror that would unfold.
Okay, these units in the school, I got bodies here. Let's getting everyone to...
Just after 9:30 this morning, Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown became a killing field, the site of the second worst mass school shooting in history. 26 people murdered, 20 of them kids between the ages of 5 and 10. A staggering loss of life made worse by the fact the majority of the victims were innocent children.
Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own.
State and local police swarmed the school, which was immediately put on lockdown. Students described sitting in darkened rooms that were locked by teachers. Eventually, the children were evacuated from the school to a firehouse next door.
We're evacuating people, so we ran out. There's police about at every door. They're leading us down this way, quick, come on.
Police identify the gunman as 20-year-old Adam Lanza, who was also killed. His mother is a teacher at the school and among the dead. The carnage devastating the close-knit community, struggling to understand why someone would do the unthinkable.
What a horrible thing to happen right at Christmas. Those poor little kids looking forward to Santa Claus, and I just can't figure out what is going on with the world.
And prayer vigils for the community tonight, also counseling not only for the families involved, but grief counselors also for some of the first responders. Even though their work is far from done, they are processing a second crime scene with another female victim at the Lanza home, as well as processing this scene. It could take days. The medical examiner now at the school. Bill and Liz.
Marcus, I see that there are police behind you directing traffic. Is that for a vigil, one of the vigils that is happening later on tonight? Or are there just a bunch of people now coming into town?
No, this is actually the access. No, this is the access to the school. It goes right up the road here, and this is the way you get to the school. So it is close to all traffic. It has been all day. Only emergency vehicles leaving, coming and going to the school. And this is where we saw parents. They were parking a little bit beyond this and running up the hill and walking up, and some of the staffers we saw came down this hill. So this is the only way in and out.
Marcus, you said it could take days before they make any kind of official confirmation even of identities. They have not. You heard that press conference. Lieutenant Vance of the Connecticut State Police didn't even confirm that which everyone is reporting, that Mr. Lanza was indeed the shooter.
Well, the way he described it, and he says even for seasoned law enforcement personnel, this is not something that they're used to seeing. This was a difficult and horrific scene. And so even after the bodies of the children and the adults inside removed, there will be much to document, much to photograph, much to mark, to measure, because this is not only something that will have to be, that is part of the investigation, but this is something that law enforcement will use going forward. This is how disaster plans are put into place when they try and figure out just what happened in the school.
All right, Marcus Solis, just outside of the school there in Newtown. We're going to head over now to an area not too far away from where Marcus is, to the firehouse, and that is where all the parents went to this morning to find out about their children, many of them to be reunited with them children, and many did not. And that is where Eyewitness News reporter Jeff Pegues. And Jeff, I have to say that what you have been witnessing there must be gut-wrenching.
It is a heartbreaking scene here, and as you mentioned, this was an area that many family members of victims were coming to. Behind me here, this is the Sandy Hook Firehouse, and this has become the staging area for what is going on at this school. Investigators are gathering here, and as you mentioned, family members as well. Family members of the victims coming here, trying to figure out, obviously, what happened and trying to figure out the status of their loved ones. And we've been told by state police that there are still family members of victims here in the firehouse behind me. As I mentioned, investigators are here as well. The governor of Connecticut was here meeting with some of the victims' family members. Here's what has happened. State police have set up a room inside this firehouse for the family members of the victims. I talked to the lieutenant with the state police who was acting as the spokesperson, Lieutenant Paul Vance. Here's what he had to say.
We have established a line of communication by assigning a trooper to each family. Each family has a trooper, and that trooper has instantaneous access to any and all information relative to this investigation. Family member has a question, and certainly we want them to have that information first. No disrespect here. We don't want them to get it via the media. We want to give it to them firsthand. If they have concerns or if there's anything we can do to make this a little less horrific.
And as you heard there, they are being very sensitive to the feelings of the family members of the victims, and that is why they have assigned these state troopers to them. As I mentioned, there is a room inside this firehouse behind me where they are sending people to, family members of the victims. That is where the governor met with some of them. But they're trying to be as sensitive as they possibly can to the people coming here looking for information. Back to you.
Can you imagine, Jeff, you have two children. Can you imagine just the uncertainty and the pain? And these parents were first told there was a shooter at their school, shots were fired, but everyone, there was no word on anyone being hurt. And all of a sudden the death toll is at 27, and some of these people did not know what happened to their kids until they actually saw them come to that firehouse.
Yeah, I live about 15 miles southeast from here, and just driving up, you heard the death toll rising and how heartbreaking. But the surrounding communities affected by this as well. The town that I live in, the schools there were on lockdown. The school superintendent was sending out emails to families of kids who were in the schools in that community, telling them the situation here and how they were responding to it there. So even though the threat was here in Newtown, surrounding school districts affected by this as well, going on lockdown, after school activities canceled, and in some cases school officials were riding on school buses with the kids as they were heading home. So this is something that has affected communities around Newtown as well, and Sandy Hook.
Certainly so. All right. Jeff Pegues, we appreciate it. We should let you know that we have learned new information. ABC News saying that Adam Lanza's mother, Nancy Lanza, who worked as a teacher's aide or teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary, it was initially believed that she was killed inside her classroom. ABC News is now confirming that she was killed inside of her home. That is where Eyewitness News reporter Jim Hoffer has been reporting all day long. The question was, whose body was that in the house? We are now, according to ABC News, told that that woman is Adam Lanza's mother.
And then he left the house and went to the school. In about a half hour, 32 minutes from now, there's going to be a memorial service for the community and coming together to share in their grief. Before we close and head to Diane Sawyer for World News, we want to check in with Eyewitness News reporter Matt Kozar. He is at the United Methodist Church where people are gathering right now. And just set the scene for us, Matt.